He threw his 9 months pregnant wife in rain for refusing him her $3,000 salary, but he soon regretted it. Hello everyone, welcome to our story. Please don't forget to like and share and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. If someone had asked Maria Santos 6 months ago what she thought about her life, she would have smiled and said, "I'm happy. I have a good husband and we're going to have a baby soon." If someone had looked closely at her eyes, really closely, maybe they would have seen the worry hiding there. But no one ever looked that close. From the outside, Maria had what many people wanted: a job at a bank helping people with their money, a nice apartment, and a husband who seemed to love her. People thought her life was perfect. But inside the Santos apartment, things were not what they looked like. On a cold Thursday morning in March, Maria woke up to the sound of Tom walking around in the kitchen. She looked at her phone to see what time it was. 6 o'clock in the morning. The sky outside was still dark and gray. Maria slowly got out of bed. Her big belly made everything harder to do now. The baby inside her was due any day and she felt heavy and tired. She put on her warm robe and walked carefully to the kitchen. Tom was standing by the coffee maker, tapping his fingers on the counter. His face looked angry even this early in the morning. When he saw Maria, he didn't smile or say good morning like husbands usually do. "Hello, Tom," Maria said softly, trying to sound cheerful. Tom didn't look at her. Instead, he kept staring at his coffee cup. "Do you know what day it is?" he asked in a cold voice. Maria felt her stomach tighten, not from the baby but from fear. She knew exactly what day it was. "Yes," she said quietly. "It's payday." "That's right," Tom said, finally looking at her with hard, mean eyes. "It's payday. So why are you acting like it's just a normal day?" Maria put her hand on her big belly, feeling the baby move inside. She had been dreading this conversation for weeks. Every month, Tom wanted more and more of her paycheck. At first, he just asked for a little money to help with bills. But now he wanted almost everything she earned. "Tom, we talked about this," Maria said, trying to keep her voice calm. "This money needs to be for the baby. We need to buy a crib and diapers and clothes. And I have to pay the doctor who will help deliver our baby." Tom slammed his coffee cup down on the counter so hard that Maria jumped. Some coffee spilled and made a brown puddle on the white counter. "I don't want to hear about the baby," Tom shouted. "I'm tired of hearing about what the baby needs. What about what I need? What about my debts? What about my friends who are waiting for me to pay them back?" Maria felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she tried to be strong. She had worked so hard for her money. Every day she went to the bank and helped customers with their savings accounts and loans. Even though her belly was getting bigger and bigger, she kept working because she knew they would need money when the baby came. "Tom, please try to understand," Maria said, her voice shaking a little. "After the baby comes, I won't be able to work for a while. This $3,000 is all we have to live on for the next few months." But Tom wasn't listening. He started walking back and forth across the small kitchen like a wild animal in a cage. His face was getting redder and redder with anger. "You don't understand anything," Tom yelled, pointing his finger at Maria. "You think you're so smart because you work at the bank, but you don't know anything about real life. You don't know about the pressure I'm under." Maria backed up against the kitchen wall, holding her belly protectively. The baby inside her was moving a lot now, like it could feel the anger in the room. "What pressure, Tom?" Maria asked. "You haven't had a job in 3 months. I'm the one working every day even though I'm about to have a baby. I'm the one bringing home money for our family." This made Tom even angrier. He stepped closer to Maria, so close that she could smell the coffee on his breath. "Don't you dare talk to me like that," Tom screamed. "I am the man of this house. That money you earn belongs to both of us. You have no right to keep it from me." Outside, dark clouds were starting to gather in the sky. The wind was beginning to blow harder, making the windows of their apartment shake a little. It looked like a storm was coming. Maria looked at Tom's angry face and realized that the man she had married was not the same person standing in front of her now. When they first met, Tom had been kind and funny. He used to bring her flowers and tell her she was beautiful. But slowly, month by month, he had changed into someone mean and scary. "Tom," Maria said, trying one more time to make him understand. "I love you. But I have to think about our baby now. When the baby comes, we'll need money for formula and diapers and doctor visits. Please try to see that I'm trying to take care of our family." Tom stared at her for a long moment. For just a second, Maria thought maybe he would understand. Maybe he would remember how much he used to love her. Maybe he would put his arms around her and tell her everything would be okay. But instead, Tom's face got even meaner. "You know what, Maria?" he said in a low, dangerous voice. "If you won't give me that money, then maybe you don't belong in this house anymore. Maria felt like someone had thrown cold water on her. What do you mean? She whispered. Tom smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind of smile that made Maria feel scared. I mean, Tom said slowly, if you won't share your money with your own husband, then maybe you should take your precious money and get out. The first drops of rain started hitting the window, tap, 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 like someone knocking to come in. The storm was beginning, and Maria could feel that her whole life was about to change forever. Maria stared at Tom, hoping she had heard him wrong. Tom, you can't be serious. I'm 9 months pregnant. The baby could come any day now. Where would I go? Tom crossed his arms and looked at her like she was a stranger, not his wife. That's not my problem anymore. If you won't act like a real wife and share your money with me, then you're not welcome in my house. Your house? Maria said, her voice getting stronger even though she was scared. Tom, we both live here. We both pay for this apartment. And it's not just about the money, this is about our baby. But Tom didn't want to hear about the baby. Every time Maria mentioned their unborn child, his face got angrier. It was like he had forgotten that in just a few days or weeks, they would be parents. I'm tired of hearing about the baby. Tom shouted, his voice so loud that Maria was sure the neighbors could hear. All you care about is that baby? What about me? What about what I want? Maria felt a sharp pain in her belly, not from the baby moving but from stress. Her doctor had told her that getting upset was bad for the baby. She needed to stay calm. But how could she stay calm when her husband was acting like this? Tom, please, Maria said, putting both hands on her belly. Let's sit down and talk about this like grown-ups. We're going to be parents soon. We need to work together, not fight. Tom laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was mean and cold. Work together? You mean I should just let you keep all the money while I have nothing? While my friends think I'm a loser because I can't pay them back. What friends? Maria asked. She was starting to understand something she hadn't seen before. Tom, are you gambling again? Is that where you need the money? Tom's face turned bright red. For a moment he looked like a little boy who had been caught doing something wrong. But then his anger came back, stronger than before. It's none of your business what I do with money, he yelled. I'm the husband. You're supposed to trust me and do what I say. Outside the rain was getting heavier. Thunder rumbled in the distance like a giant monster growling. The storm was getting closer and stronger. Maria felt another pain in her belly, this one sharper than before. She leaned against the kitchen counter, breathing slowly like her doctor had taught her. Tom, I need to sit down, she said. The baby is moving a lot and I'm feeling some pain. Can we please just... No. Tom interrupted. We're not done talking. You're going to give me that $3,000 right now, or you're going to get out of this house. Maria looked at Tom's angry face and realized something terrible. The man she had married, the man she had loved, was gone. In his place was someone she didn't recognize, someone mean and selfish and cruel. I can't give you all the money, Tom, Maria said quietly but firmly. I won't do it. Our baby needs that money. Tom stared at her for a long moment. His hands were closed into tight fists. His breathing was heavy and fast. Maria had never seen him look so angry and it scared her. Fine, Tom said in a voice that was quiet but full of rage. You made your choice. Now you can live with it. Tom turned around and walked out of the kitchen. Maria could hear his heavy footsteps going to their bedroom. She heard him opening and closing drawers, throwing things around. Maria's heart was beating so fast she could feel it pounding in her chest. She didn't know what Tom was doing, but she knew it wasn't good. A few minutes later, Tom came back carrying Maria's small blue suitcase. He threw it down on the kitchen floor with a loud thud. Pack your things, he said coldly. You have 10 minutes. Maria couldn't believe what she was hearing. Tom, you can't be serious. Look at me. She pointed to her big belly. I'm about to have our baby. You can't throw me out. Watch me, Tom said. He grabbed Maria's arm, not gently like a husband should touch his wife, but rough and hard like she was his enemy. Let go of me, Maria said, trying to pull her arm away. But Tom was stronger than her, and with her big belly, it was hard for her to move quickly. Tom dragged Maria toward the bedroom. Pack your clothes. Pack whatever you want. But you're leaving this house tonight. Maria's hands were shaking as she opened the suitcase. She could hardly think straight. This felt like a bad dream, like something that couldn't really be happening. But the sound of rain hitting the windows reminded her that this was very real. She put some clothes in the suitcase, a warm sweater, some underwear, a pair of jeans that still fit over her belly. She packed the soft yellow blanket her mother had knitted for the baby. Her hands moved slowly like she was underwater. From the kitchen, she could hear Tom pacing back and forth, his footsteps heavy on the floor. The rain was getting even heavier now, pounding on the roof like 100 drums. When Maria came back to the kitchen with her packed suitcase, Tom was standing by the front door with his arms crossed. He looked at her with no love, no kindness, no worry for her safety. "I'm packed," Maria said softly, still hoping that maybe Tom would change his mind. Maybe when he saw her standing there, scared and pregnant and holding a suitcase, he would remember that he loved her. But Tom's heart seemed to be made of stone. "Good," he said. He walked over and opened the front door wide. A blast of cold, wet air rushed into the apartment. Maria could see the rain pouring down like a waterfall from the dark sky. The wind was howling like a wild animal. "Tom, please?" Maria begged. "It's a terrible storm out there. I could get sick. The baby could get hurt." But Tom had made up his mind. He grabbed Maria's arm again and pulled her toward the open door. "Out," he said simply. And before Maria could say another word, Tom pushed her through the doorway and into the cold, dark, rainy night. Maria stumbled forward, trying not to fall. The suitcase fell from her hand and landed in a big puddle with a loud splash. The rain hit her like a wall of ice-cold water, soaking through her thin shirt and pants in seconds. She turned around quickly, hoping Tom would realize what he had done and let her back inside. But instead, she heard the door slam shut with a loud bang. The sound echoed through the empty street like a gunshot. Maria stood there in the pouring rain, staring at the closed door of what used to be her home. She couldn't believe this was really happening. Just an hour ago, she had been warm and safe in her own bed. Now she was standing in the street, alone and scared, with nowhere to go. The rain was so heavy that she could barely see. Water ran down her face and hair, making it hard to tell if she was crying or if it was just the rain. Her clothes stuck to her skin, and she was shivering so hard her teeth were chattering. Maria bent down slowly to pick up her wet suitcase. It was hard to bend over with her big belly, and the rain made everything slippery. As she tried to stand up straight, she felt a sharp pain shoot across her stomach. "Ow," she said out loud, putting her free hand on her belly. The pain was different from anything she had felt before. It was stronger and scarier than the little kicks and movements the baby usually made. "Please, baby," Maria whispered, talking to the child inside her. "Please don't come now. Not tonight. Not like this." But the pain came again, stronger this time. Maria had to lean against a parked car to keep from falling down. She knew what this meant. She had read about it in all the baby books. These weren't just normal pregnancy pains. These were contractions. The baby was trying to be born. "No, no, no," Maria said, tears mixing with the rainwater on her face. "It's too early. It's not safe." She looked around the empty street, hoping to see someone who could help her. But it was late at night, and the storm was so bad that everyone was inside their warm, dry homes. Maria was completely alone. The wind blew harder, making the rain feel like tiny needles hitting her skin. Street lights made long yellow reflections in the puddles on the ground, but they didn't make Maria feel any safer. She had never felt so scared and helpless in her whole life. Another contraction hit her, this one so strong that she had to hold onto the car with both hands. The suitcase fell again, and this time she didn't have the strength to pick it up. "Help!" Maria tried to call out, but her voice was too weak. The rain and wind were so loud that even if someone had been nearby, they wouldn't have heard her. "Please, somebody help me." Maria looked back at the door of her apartment one more time. She thought about knocking, about begging Tom to let her back in. But she remembered the cold, mean look in his eyes. She knew he wouldn't change his mind. He had made his choice, and now she had to live with it. "I have to find help," Maria said to herself, trying to be brave. "I have to find somewhere safe for my baby to be born." She started walking down the street, leaving her suitcase behind. Each step was hard because of the pain in her belly and because the rain made the sidewalk slippery. She had to stop every few steps to breathe through another contraction. The neighborhood looked different in the storm. Houses that seemed friendly during the day now looked dark and scary. Most of the windows were dark, which meant people were sleeping. Maria didn't know any of her neighbors very well. Would any of them help a stranger in the middle of the night? As she walked, Maria thought about her mother, who lived in another city far away. Her mother would have helped her, would have taken care of her and the baby. But it was too late to call her now and too far to travel. She thought about her friends from work, but most of them lived on the other side of town. In the storm, with no car and no money for a taxi, they might as well have lived on the moon. Another strong contraction made Maria stop walking and lean against a fence. She was breathing hard now, not just from the pain but from fear. What if the baby was born right here in the street? What if something went wrong? What if no one found them until it was too late? I need to get to a hospital, Maria said out loud, trying to think clearly through the pain and fear. But the nearest hospital was miles away and she had no way to get there. Just as Maria was starting to feel hopeless, she saw a light in the window of a small house across the street. Someone was awake. Someone who might be able to help her. Maria looked both ways and carefully crossed the empty street, moving as fast as she could with her big belly. The light was coming from the kitchen window of a house with a pretty garden in front. Even in the dark and rain, Maria could see flower pots on the front porch. She walked up to the front door and knocked as loudly as she could. Her knuckles were so cold and wet that it hurt to knock, but she kept trying. "Please be home," Maria whispered. "Please help me." After what felt like forever, Maria heard footsteps inside the house. The porch light came on, making her squint after being in the dark for so long. The door opened just a crack, and Maria could see part of an older woman's face peeking out. "Who's there?" the woman asked in a worried voice. "What do you want?" "Please," Maria said, her voice shaking from cold and fear. "My name is Maria Santos. I live down the street. My husband, he threw me out and I'm having contractions. I think my baby is coming and I don't know what to do." The woman's eyes got wide when she saw Maria standing there in the rain, soaking wet and obviously pregnant. Without saying another word, she threw the door open wide. "Oh my goodness," the woman said. Come in right now. You poor thing." The woman quickly helped Maria inside, closing the door behind them to keep out the cold rain and wind. Maria stood in the warm hallway, dripping water all over the clean floor, but the woman didn't seem to care about that at all. "My name is Mrs. Lawson," the woman said kindly. "Don't worry about the water, dear. Let's get you warm and dry." Mrs. Lawson was probably around 65 years old, with gray hair and gentle brown eyes. She was wearing a pink bathrobe and fuzzy slippers, which meant Maria had woken her up. But Mrs. Lawson didn't look angry or annoyed. She looked worried and caring like a grandmother would. "Thank you so much," Maria said, her teeth still chattering from the cold. "I'm so sorry to bother you so late at night, but I didn't know where else to go." Another contraction hit Maria, stronger than the ones before. She had to grab onto the wall to keep from falling down. A small cry escaped from her mouth before she could stop it. "Oh dear," Mrs. Lawson said, her eyes filled with worry. "How far apart are your contractions? When did they start?" "They started when?" Maria had to stop talking as another wave of pain washed over her. "When my husband pushed me out into the rain about 20 minutes ago. They're getting stronger and closer together." Mrs. Lawson's face changed from worried to angry. "Your husband did what? He threw you out in this storm while you're about to have a baby?" Maria nodded, tears starting to flow down her cheeks again. "We had a fight about money. He wanted me to give him my whole paycheck, but I said no because we need it for the baby. So he made me pack my things and pushed me out the door." "That's terrible," Mrs. Lawson said, shaking her head. "No man should ever treat his wife that way, especially not when she's pregnant. Come, let's get you out of these wet clothes before you catch pneumonia." Mrs. Lawson hurried to her linen closet and came back with a big fluffy towel and a warm bathrobe. "The bathroom is right there, dear. Get out of those wet things and put this on. I'm going to make some hot tea and call for help." Maria went into the bathroom and slowly peeled off her cold, wet clothes. It felt so good to be warm and dry again. Mrs. Lawson's bathrobe was too big for her, but it was soft and cozy. When she looked in the mirror, she could see how scared and tired she looked, but at least she wasn't shivering anymore. When Maria came out of the bathroom, she could smell hot tea and hear Mrs. Lawson talking on the phone in the kitchen. "Yes, this is Eleanor Lawson at 247 Maple Street," Mrs. Lawson was saying. "I need an ambulance right away. I have a young woman here who is 9 months pregnant and having contractions. Her husband threw her out in the storm." "Yes, you heard me right. Threw her out in the rain." "Yes, we'll be waiting." Mrs. Lawson hung up the phone and turned to Maria with a reassuring smile. "The ambulance is on the way, sweetheart. They'll be here in about 10 minutes. "Thank you," Maria said, sitting down carefully at Mrs. Lawson's kitchen table. "You're so kind. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been awake." "I couldn't sleep because of the storm," Mrs. Lawson said, pouring hot tea into a pretty blue cup. "Good thing too, or I might not have heard you knocking. Here, drink this. It will help warm you up from the inside." The tea tasted like heaven. It was sweet and warm, and it made Maria feel a little bit stronger. Mrs. Lawson sat down across from her, her face full of concern. "Tell me about this husband of yours," Mrs. Lawson said gently. "Is this the first time he's been violent with you?" Maria thought about it carefully. He's never hit me, she said slowly. But he's been getting meaner and meaner, especially about money. He doesn't work very much, but he wants me to give him all the money I earn. Tonight was the first time he's ever put his hands on me and forced me to leave. Mrs. Lawson said, nodding thoughtfully. And what about your family? Your parents? Do they know how he treats you? My mother lives far away in another state, Maria explained. She doesn't know how bad things have gotten. Tom is always very nice when other people are around. He acts like the perfect husband in front of everyone else. Another contraction hit Maria, this one so strong that she had to grip the edge of the table. Mrs. Lawson quickly got up and rubbed Maria's back in gentle circles, just like Maria's mother used to do when she was sick as a child. Breathe, dear, Mrs. Lawson said softly. In and out, slow and steady. That's it. When the contraction passed, Maria looked up at Mrs. Lawson with tears in her eyes. What if something is wrong with my baby? What if being out in the cold and rain hurt the baby? What if I'm not ready to be a mother? Oh, sweetheart, Mrs. Lawson said, taking Maria's hands in hers. You're going to be a wonderful mother. I can tell just by looking at you. You were willing to stand up to your husband to protect your baby's future. That shows how much you already love this little one. Just then they heard the sound of sirens getting closer and closer. Red and blue lights flashed through the kitchen window as the ambulance pulled up in front of Mrs. Lawson's house. They're here, Mrs. Lawson said, squeezing Maria's hands. Everything is going to be okay now. The doctors and nurses will take good care of you and your baby. There was a knock at the door and Mrs. Lawson hurried to answer it. 2 paramedics came in carrying a stretcher and medical equipment. One was a young man with kind eyes, and the other was a woman with short brown hair. Hello, I'm Jake and this is Sarah, the male paramedic said to Maria. We're here to help you and your baby. Can you tell us your name and how you're feeling? My name is Maria Santos, she said, trying to stay calm. I'm 9 months pregnant, and I started having contractions about an hour ago. They're getting stronger and closer together. Sarah knelt down next to Maria and took her pulse while Jake asked more questions. When is your due date? Is this your first baby? Do you have any medical problems we should know about? My due date is next week, Maria answered. This is my first baby and I don't have any health problems. But I'm scared because I was out in the rain and cold for a while before Mrs. Lawson found me. Don't worry, Sarah said with a reassuring smile. We're going to take you to the hospital right now, and the doctors will make sure both you and your baby are safe. The paramedics helped Maria onto the stretcher and covered her with warm blankets. As they were getting ready to take her to the ambulance, Mrs. Lawson grabbed Maria's hand. I'm going to follow you to the hospital in my car, Mrs. Lawson said firmly. You shouldn't be alone at a time like this. But you don't even know me, Maria said, more tears flowing down her cheeks. Why would you do that for a stranger? Mrs. Lawson smiled and patted Maria's hand. Because everyone deserves to have someone who cares about them, especially when they're bringing a new life into the world. Besides, you're not a stranger anymore. You're my friend. The ambulance ride to the hospital felt like the longest and shortest trip of Maria's life at the same time. The sirens were loud, and the ambulance rocked back and forth as Jake drove quickly through the stormy streets. But inside, Sarah the paramedic kept talking to Maria in a calm, gentle voice that made her feel safer. You're doing great, Maria, Sarah said, checking Maria's blood pressure with a special cuff around her arm. Your vitals look good and the baby's heartbeat is strong and steady. Maria felt a little bit of relief hearing that. The baby is okay? Even after being out in the cold rain? The baby is fine, Sarah assured her. Babies are tougher than you think and you weren't outside long enough for any real harm to happen. But we're going to let the doctors check everything just to be sure. Another contraction hit Maria, this one lasting longer than the others. She squeezed the sides of the stretcher and tried to breathe the way Mrs. Lawson had taught her. How far apart are they now? Sarah asked, looking at her watch. About 5 minutes, Jake called from the driver's seat. We'll be at the hospital in 3 more minutes. Maria looked out the small window in the back of the ambulance. She could see car headlights and street lamps blurred by the rain on the glass. Somewhere behind them, Mrs. Lawson was following in her own car. The thought of having someone there who cared about her made Maria feel less alone. Sarah, Maria said quietly, what happens if my husband comes to the hospital? What if he tries to take me home? Sarah's face became serious. Maria, you're an adult and you have rights. No one can force you to go anywhere you don't want to go. If you don't feel safe with your husband, we can help you contact social services or a shelter for women who need protection. I don't know, Maria said, feeling confused and scared. I mean, he's never hit me before tonight. Maybe this was just a really bad fight. Maybe when he calms down, he'll be sorry and want to make things right. Maybe, Sarah said gently. But Maria, a good husband doesn't throw his pregnant wife out in a storm, no matter how angry he gets. A good husband protects his family, especially when there's a baby coming. Before Maria could think more about this, the ambulance pulled up to the emergency entrance of Mercy General Hospital. The big glass doors slid open automatically, and bright lights flooded the ambulance as the back doors opened. Several people in scrubs came running out, doctors and nurses who were ready to help Maria and her baby. Everything happened very fast. Maria was wheeled inside on the stretcher, through hallways that smelled like cleaning supplies and medicine. Room 3, a nurse with red hair called out. Dr. Martinez is on her way. They moved Maria from the ambulance stretcher to a hospital bed in a clean, white room. A nurse named Jennifer started asking questions while another nurse hooked up machines that would monitor the baby's heartbeat. When did the contractions start? How far apart are they? Any bleeding or fluid leaking? Jennifer asked, writing down Maria's answers on a clipboard. The contractions started about 2 hours ago, Maria said. They're about 4 or 5 minutes apart now and they're getting stronger. No bleeding that I know of. Dr. Martinez came into the room, a woman with kind eyes and black hair pulled back in a ponytail. She washed her hands carefully and put on plastic gloves. Hello, Maria. I'm Dr. Martinez. I'm going to examine you and check how the baby is doing. Is this your first baby? Yes, Maria said nervously. Is it normal for the baby to come this early? My due date isn't for another week. A week early is very normal, Dr. Martinez said with a reassuring smile. Many first babies come a little early or a little late. Let me check to see how far along you are. After a few minutes of examining Maria and checking the machines, Dr. Martinez looked pleased. Good news, Maria. The baby looks healthy and strong. You're about 6 centimeters dilated, which means you're definitely in labor, but you still have some time before the baby arrives. How much time? Maria asked. Probably a few more hours, Dr. Martinez said. First babies usually take their time. Jennifer is going to help you get comfortable and walk you through what to expect. Just then there was a soft knock on the door. Mrs. Lawson peered in, looking worried but hopeful. May I come in, dear? Mrs. Lawson asked. I wanted to make sure you were okay. Yes, please come in, Maria said, feeling happy to see a friendly face. Dr. Martinez, this is Mrs. Lawson. She saved my life tonight. Mrs. Lawson came over and took Maria's hand. How are you feeling, sweetheart? What did the doctor say? The baby is healthy and everything looks normal, Maria said. But I'm going to be here for a while. Mrs. Lawson, you don't have to stay. It's very late and you should go home and get some sleep. Nonsense, Mrs. Lawson said firmly. I'm not leaving you alone. I'll stay as long as you need me to. Dr. Martinez smiled at both of them. It's wonderful that you have support, Maria. Having someone you trust with you during labor can make everything easier. Mrs. Lawson, there's a comfortable chair right there if you'd like to sit. Jennifer showed Maria how to use the bed controls to sit up or lie down, and how to press the call button if she needed anything. She also explained about the monitors that were keeping track of the baby's heartbeat. Everything looks perfect so far, Jennifer said. The baby's heart rate is strong and steady. Try to rest between contractions if you can. As the nurse left the room, Maria finally had a moment to think about everything that had happened. Just a few hours ago, she had been at home with Tom, fighting about money. Now she was in a hospital, about to become a mother, and Tom didn't even know where she was. Mrs. Lawson, Maria said quietly, do you think I should call Tom and tell him I'm in the hospital? Mrs. Lawson thought for a moment before answering. That's up to you, dear. But remember, he threw you out in a storm when you needed him most. Do you really think he's changed his mind in just a few hours? Maria felt another contraction building, stronger than the ones before. As she breathed through the pain, she realized Mrs. Lawson was right. Tom had made his choice when he pushed her out that door. Now she had to make her choice about what kind of life she wanted for herself and her baby. I don't want him here, Maria said when the contraction passed. Not tonight. Tonight is about me and my baby, and I want it to be peaceful and safe. Mrs. Lawson squeezed her hand. Then that's what we'll do. Tonight is about bringing your beautiful baby into the world. While Maria was safe in the hospital with Mrs. Lawson by her side, Tom was alone in the empty apartment. At first, after he slammed the door, he felt angry and proud of himself. He walked around the living room with his chest puffed out, talking to himself. That'll teach her, Tom said out loud to the empty room. She can't treat me like I don't matter. I'm her husband. She has to respect me. Tom made himself a sandwich and turned on the TV, trying to act like everything was normal. He flipped through the channels but he couldn't focus on any of the shows. The sound of rain hitting the windows kept reminding him that Maria was out there somewhere in the storm. She'll come back, Tom told himself. She'll knock on the door in an hour or two, crying and saying she's sorry. Then she'll give me the money like she should have done in the first place. But as the hours passed, there was no knock at the door. The storm outside got worse, with thunder that shook the windows and lightning that lit up the dark apartment. Tom found himself looking toward the door every few minutes, waiting for the sound of Maria's key in the lock. By midnight, Tom was starting to feel a little worried. Not because he cared about Maria, he told himself, but because he needed that $3,000. What if something happened to her before she could give him the money? Tom tried calling Maria's cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. He remembered that her phone was probably in her purse, which was still sitting on their kitchen counter where she had left it when she came home from work. Stupid woman, Tom muttered. How is she supposed to call me if she doesn't even have her phone? He tried to go to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he kept picturing Maria out in the rain. Not because he was worried about her, Tom told himself. He just wanted his money. But around 3 in the morning, Tom heard something that made his stomach feel funny. It was the sound of sirens, an ambulance racing through the neighborhood with its lights flashing. The sound got louder as it came closer, then quieter as it drove away. Tom got up and looked out the window. The street was empty now, but he could see puddles everywhere reflecting the streetlights. He thought about Maria, 9 months pregnant, walking around in this weather with nowhere to go. She's probably at her friend Lisa's house, Tom said to himself. Yeah, that's where she went. Lisa will tell her to come home and apologize to me. But deep down, Tom was starting to feel something he didn't want to admit. It was a tiny, worried feeling in his chest that kept getting bigger every time he heard thunder or saw lightning. At 4 in the morning, Tom couldn't stand it anymore. He put on his jacket and shoes and decided to walk around the neighborhood to look for Maria. Not because he was sorry, he told himself. Just because he needed to find her so she could give him the money. Tom walked up and down the streets near their apartment, getting soaked by the rain. He checked the all-night diner 3 blocks away. He looked in the laundromat. He even walked to the bus station to see if Maria was trying to leave town. But Maria was nowhere to be found. As Tom walked back toward his apartment, cold and wet and tired, he passed Mrs. Lawson's house. He noticed that her car wasn't in the driveway, which was strange because Mrs. Lawson was an old lady who never went anywhere at night. Tom didn't think too much about it though. He was too focused on his own problems. Back at the apartment, Tom tried to call Maria's work friends, but it was too early in the morning and no one answered their phones. He made a pot of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at Maria's purse and wondering where she could be. As the sun started to come up, Tom realized he had been awake all night. He felt tired and grumpy and his head hurt from worrying. He kept telling himself that this was all Maria's fault. If she had just given him the money like a good wife should, none of this would have happened. But the worried feeling in his chest kept growing stronger. Around 7 in the morning, Tom heard voices outside his apartment. He looked out the window and saw 2 of his neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Chin, talking by their mailbox. They kept looking toward his apartment and shaking their heads like they were upset about something. Tom opened his window a little so he could hear what they were saying. I can't believe he threw her out in the storm, Mrs. Chin was saying. She's 9 months pregnant. What kind of man does something like that to his wife? A bad man, Mr. Chin replied. I always thought there was something wrong with that Tom fellow. Remember how he never helped Maria carry groceries when her belly got big? And did you see how he never had a job but always had money for beer and gambling? Mrs. Chin added. That poor girl was working right up until the baby was due, while he sat around doing nothing. Tom felt his face getting red with anger. How dare his neighbors talk about him like that? They didn't know anything about his life or his marriage. But then Mrs. Chin said something that made Tom's blood run cold. Thank goodness Mrs. Lawson saw her and helped her, Mrs. Chin said. I heard the ambulance came around midnight. I hope Maria and the baby are okay. Ambulance? Tom's heart started beating fast. What ambulance? What was wrong with Maria and the baby? Tom closed the window and started pacing around the apartment. His neighbors were probably just gossiping, he told himself. They didn't know what they were talking about. But what if they did? What if Maria really was in trouble? What if the baby was coming early because of the stress and cold? For the first time since he had pushed Maria out the door, Tom started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he had made a terrible mistake. Back at the hospital, Maria was going through the hardest and most amazing experience of her life. The contractions were getting stronger and coming faster, but she felt braver with Mrs. Lawson holding her hand and the nurses taking care of her. "You're doing so well, Maria," said Jennifer, the nurse with red hair. "You're at 8 centimeters now. It won't be much longer before you can start pushing." Maria squeezed Mrs. Lawson's hand as another strong contraction washed over her. She had been in labor for 6 hours now and she was tired but also excited. Soon she would meet her baby for the first time. "Mrs. Lawson," Maria said between contractions, "what if I'm not a good mother? What if I don't know how to take care of a baby by myself?" Mrs. Lawson smiled and brushed Maria's hair back from her sweaty forehead. "Sweetheart, I've lived for 65 years, and I can tell you something important. Good mothers aren't born knowing everything. They learn by loving their babies and doing their best every day." "But what about money?" Maria worried. "How will I pay for diapers and formula and a crib? I only have the $3,000 from my last paycheck, and that has to pay for rent and food too." "One step at a time, dear," Mrs. Lawson said gently. "Right now, just focus on bringing this baby into the world safely. We'll figure out everything else later. And remember, you're not as alone as you think. There are people who care about you and want to help." Dr. Martinez came back into the room, checking the monitors and examining Maria again. "Great news, Maria. You're fully dilated now. On your next contraction, I want you to start pushing." Maria felt scared and excited at the same time. This was really happening. After 9 months of waiting and wondering, she was finally going to meet her baby. "I can't do this," Maria said, suddenly feeling overwhelmed. "I'm too scared. What if something goes wrong?" "You can do this," Mrs. Lawson said firmly but kindly. "You're the strongest young woman I've ever met. Look at everything you've been through in the last 12 hours. If you can survive that, you can do anything." Dr. Martinez positioned herself at the foot of the bed. "Maria, women have been having babies for thousands of years. Your body knows what to do. Just listen to what I tell you and push when I say push." The next contraction started building, stronger than any of the others. "Okay, Maria," Dr. Martinez said. "Take a deep breath and push as hard as you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Take a breath and get ready to push again." Maria pushed with all her strength, squeezing Mrs. Lawson's hand so hard she was afraid she might hurt her. But Mrs. Lawson just squeezed back, giving Maria all the support she needed. "I can see the baby's head," Dr. Martinez said excitedly. "The baby has dark hair just like yours, Maria. One more big push and the head will be out." Maria took the deepest breath of her life and pushed harder than she ever had before. She felt like she was using every bit of strength in her whole body. "The head is out," Dr. Martinez announced. "One more push for the shoulders and then your baby will be here." Maria pushed one last time, and suddenly she felt a rush of relief as the baby slipped out completely. The room filled with the sound of a baby's first cry, loud and strong and beautiful. "It's a girl?" Dr. Martinez said with a huge smile. "Maria, you have a beautiful, healthy daughter." Maria started crying, not from pain this time but from pure joy. She had done it. She had brought her baby girl safely into the world. Dr. Martinez quickly cleaned the baby and checked to make sure everything was okay. "She's perfect," the doctor said. 8 pounds, 2 ounces and 20 inches long. All her fingers and toes are there and her lungs are nice and strong. The nurses wrapped the baby in a soft pink blanket and gently placed her on Maria's chest. Maria looked down at her daughter's tiny face and felt her heart fill up with more love than she had ever felt in her entire life. "Hello, little one," Maria whispered, touching the baby's soft cheek. "I'm your mama. I've been waiting so long to meet you." The baby stopped crying when she heard Maria's voice. She opened her dark eyes and seemed to look right at Maria, as if she recognized the voice she had been hearing from inside the womb for 9 months. "Oh, Maria," Mrs. Lawson said with tears in her eyes. "She's absolutely beautiful. Look at those perfect little fingers." "What are you going to name her?" Jennifer asked as she helped clean up. Maria had been thinking about names for months, but she and Tom had never been able to agree on anything. Tom wanted to name the baby after his mother, but Maria didn't like that name very much. Now, looking down at her daughter, Maria knew exactly what the right name was. "Hope," Maria said softly. "Her name is Hope." "Hope," Mrs. Lawson repeated with a smile. "What a perfect name. She really is a symbol of hope, isn't she? Born on the same night that your new life began." Dr. Martinez finished checking both Maria and baby Hope. "You both did beautifully," she said. "Hope is completely healthy, and Maria, you recovered from the delivery very well. We'll keep you here for a couple of days to make sure everything is going smoothly, but I expect you'll both be able to go home soon." "Oh, The word made Maria feel a little sad. Where was home now? She couldn't go back to the apartment with Tom, not after what he had done. But she didn't have anywhere else to go. As if she could read Maria's mind, Mrs. Lawson leaned over and whispered, "Don't worry about that now, dear. We'll figure it all out. Right now, just enjoy these first precious moments with Hope." Maria looked down at her daughter, who was now sleeping peacefully on her chest. Hope's tiny chest moved up and down with each breath, and her little fists were curled up next to her face. "I promise you, Hope," Maria whispered so quietly that only the baby could hear, "I will never let anyone hurt you the way your father hurt me tonight. I will always protect you and keep you safe." In that moment, Maria realized that she felt stronger than she ever had before. She was a mother now. She had someone depending on her, someone who needed her to be brave and smart and strong. And Maria knew that she could be all of those things, even if she had to do it all by herself. While Maria was holding baby Hope for the first time, Tom was getting more and more worried back at the apartment. He had spent the whole morning calling hospitals trying to find out if Maria was there. "Hello, this is Tom Santos," he said into the phone for the 5th time. "I'm looking for my wife, Maria Santos. She's 9 months pregnant, and I think she might have been brought to your hospital last night." "I'm sorry, sir," the voice on the other end said. "We can't give out information about patients over the phone unless you can prove your family and the patient has given permission." Tom hung up the phone, feeling frustrated and scared. He had already called City General Hospital, St. Mary's Hospital, and Children's Hospital. Now he was calling Mercy General. "Please," Tom said when someone answered. "My wife is missing and she's about to have a baby. Her name is Maria Santos. Can you please just tell me if she's there?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Sir, I understand you're worried, but I need to follow our rules. If you come to the hospital with identification, we might be able to help you." Tom slammed the phone down and grabbed his car keys. He would have to go to each hospital himself and look for Maria. As he was leaving the apartment, he ran into Mr. Peterson, another neighbor who lived upstairs. "Hey, Tom," Mr. Peterson said, but his voice wasn't friendly like it usually was. "I heard about what happened last night." "What are you talking about?" Tom asked, even though he already knew. "I'm talking about you throwing your pregnant wife out in the storm," Mr. Peterson said, crossing his arms. "What kind of man does that, Tom? What kind of husband treats his family that way?" Tom felt his face getting red with embarrassment and anger. "You don't know anything about my marriage. Maria and I just had a little fight. It's none of your business." "A little fight?" Mr. Peterson shook his head. "Tom, I saw her walking down the street in the rain, crying and holding her belly. She looked scared and hurt. That wasn't just a little fight." "She'll come back," Tom said, but his voice didn't sound as confident as he wanted it to. "She just needs to cool off and think about what she did wrong." Mr. Peterson looked at Tom like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "What she did wrong?" "Tom, she's your wife and she's carrying your child. Her job is not to give you all her money. Her job is not to take care of you like you're a child yourself." Tom didn't want to hear any more. He pushed past Mr. Peterson and got into his car, driving away as fast as he could. His first stop was City General Hospital. Tom parked and ran into the emergency room, looking around frantically for any sign of Maria. "Excuse me," he said to the woman at the front desk. "I'm looking for my wife. Her name is Maria Santos. She might have been brought here last night." The woman typed on her computer. "I don't see anyone by that name in our system," she said. "Are you sure she came to this hospital?" Tom felt his heart sink. Maybe Maria wasn't at a hospital at all. Maybe something worse had happened to her. He drove to St. Mary's Hospital next, then to Children's Hospital, getting the same answer at each place. No one had seen Maria. Finally, Tom drove to Mercy General Hospital, his last hope. He was tired and worried and starting to feel really scared. What if he never found Maria? What if something terrible had happened to her and the baby? At Mercy General, Tom walked up to the information desk, where a kind-looking older man was working. "Please," Tom said, and for the first time his voice sounded desperate instead of angry. "I'm looking for my wife, Maria Santos. She's 9 months pregnant, and she's been missing since last night." The man looked at Tom carefully. "Can I see some identification, please?" Tom showed him his driver's license, which had the same last name as Maria's. "Mr. Santos," the man said slowly, "there is a Maria Santos here, but she's asked that no visitors be allowed except for the people she specifically approves." Tom felt relief and confusion at the same time. Maria was here. She was safe. But why didn't she want to see him? "I don't understand," Tom said. "I'm her husband. Of course she wants to see me." Can you please tell me what room she's in? The man shook his head. I'm sorry, sir, but the patient was very clear. She doesn't want to see you right now. That's ridiculous. Tom said, his voice getting louder. She's my wife. I have a right to see her. Sir, please keep your voice down, the man said firmly. This is a hospital. And no, you don't have a right to see anyone who doesn't want to see you, even if you're married to them. Tom felt angry and confused and scared all at the same time. Why didn't Maria want to see him? Was she hurt? Was the baby okay? Can you at least tell me if she's all right? Tom asked. Can you tell me if the baby is okay? The man looked at Tom for a long moment as if he was trying to decide what to do. Finally he said, I can tell you that both mother and baby are healthy and safe. Tom felt a huge wave of relief wash over him. Maria was okay. The baby was okay. They were both safe. But then he felt confused again. If Maria and the baby were safe, why didn't she want to see him? Why was she acting like he was a stranger? When can I see them? Tom asked. When will she change her mind? That's up to her, sir, the man said gently. She's the patient, and she gets to decide who she wants to have visitors. Tom sat down in the waiting room, not knowing what else to do. He stared at the floor, thinking about everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. For the first time, Tom started to really think about what he had done. He had pushed his pregnant wife out into a dangerous storm because she wouldn't give him money. He had chosen gambling and his own selfish wants over the safety of his family. As he sat there in that hospital waiting room, surrounded by other people who were worried about their loved ones, Tom began to understand something important. He had made the biggest mistake of his life. Tom sat in that waiting room for 3 hours watching people come and go. He saw happy families visiting new babies, worried relatives checking on sick loved ones, and doctors walking quickly from room to room. Everyone seemed to have somewhere to be, someone who wanted to see them. But Tom was alone. His wife didn't want to see him. His baby had been born and he wasn't even allowed to know if it was a boy or a girl. Finally, around noon, Tom saw Mrs. Lawson walking down the hallway carrying a cup of coffee and a sandwich. Her clothes looked wrinkled, like she had been at the hospital all night. Tom stood up and walked over to her. Mrs. Lawson, he said quietly. Please, I need to talk to you. Mrs. Lawson looked at Tom with cold eyes. She had always been polite to him before, but now she looked at him like he was a stranger she didn't trust. What do you want, Tom? Mrs. Lawson asked. I want to see Maria, Tom said. I want to see my baby. Please, can you help me? Can you tell Maria that I'm here and I'm sorry? Mrs. Lawson stared at Tom for a long moment. You're sorry? She said. You threw your 9 months pregnant wife out in a thunderstorm and now you're sorry? Tom felt his face getting hot with embarrassment. I was angry, he said. I made a mistake. I want to make it right. A mistake. Mrs. Lawson's voice got a little louder, and other people in the hallway started to look at them. Tom, do you know what happened after you threw Maria out? Do you know what could have happened to her and your baby? Tom shook his head. He had been so worried about finding Maria that he hadn't really thought about what she went through after he pushed her out the door. She walked through the rain for 20 minutes before I found her, Mrs. Lawson said. She was soaking wet, shivering and having contractions. She could have given birth right there on the sidewalk. She could have gotten pneumonia. The baby could have been hurt. Tom felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. But they're okay, right? The man at the desk said they're both healthy. They're healthy because of luck and because I happened to see her, Mrs. Lawson said. Not because of anything you did to help them. Tom looked down at his shoes, feeling ashamed. What can I do? He asked quietly. How can I fix this? Mrs. Lawson looked at Tom carefully, as if she was trying to decide whether he really meant what he was saying. Tom, she said finally, I don't think you understand how serious this is. Maria doesn't just not want to see you right now. She's scared of you. She's afraid of what you might do if she doesn't give you what you want. I would never hurt Maria or the baby, Tom said quickly. I'm not that kind of person. Aren't you? Mrs. Lawson asked. You already did hurt them. You put them in danger because you were angry about money. What happens the next time you get angry? What happens when the baby is crying and you're stressed about bills? Tom didn't have an answer for that. He had never thought about it before. Mrs. Lawson, Tom said, please? Can you just ask Maria if she'll see me for 5 minutes? I just want to apologize and see that she and the baby are okay. Mrs. Lawson sighed. I'll ask her, she said. But Tom, if she says no, you need to respect that and leave her alone. Do you understand? Tom nodded. Yes, I understand. Mrs. Lawson walked back down the hallway toward Maria's room. Tom sat back down in the waiting room, his heart beating fast. Maybe Maria would give him a chance to explain. Maybe she would forgive him and they could work things out. After about 10 minutes, Mrs. Lawson came back. She sat down next to Tom in the waiting room. "Maria will see you," Mrs. Lawson said. "But only for 5 minutes and only if I stay in the room with you. She doesn't feel safe being alone with you right now." Tom felt hurt that Maria didn't trust him, but he also felt grateful that she was willing to see him at all. "Thank you," Tom said. "Thank you for helping us." "I'm not doing this for you," Mrs. Lawson said firmly. "I'm doing this for Maria because she asked me to. And Tom, if you say or do anything to upset her, I will call security and have you removed from this hospital. Do you understand?" Tom nodded. "I understand." Mrs. Lawson led Tom down the hallway to Maria's room. Outside the door, she stopped and turned to face him. "Before we go in," Mrs. Lawson said, "I want you to know something. Maria gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl at 8:47 this morning. The baby weighs 8 pounds and 2 ounces and her name is Hope." Tom felt his eyes fill with tears. He had a daughter. A little girl named Hope. "She named the baby without me," Tom said quietly, feeling sad and left out. "Yes, she did," Mrs. Lawson said. "Because you weren't there when your daughter was born. You were at home, sleeping in your warm, dry bed while Maria was in labor." Tom felt ashamed again. Mrs. Lawson was right. While the most important moment of his family's life was happening, he had been at home feeling sorry for himself. Mrs. Lawson opened the door to Maria's room, and Tom got his first look at his wife since he had pushed her out into the rain. Maria was sitting up in the hospital bed, wearing a soft blue gown. She looked tired but peaceful. In her arms, wrapped in a pink blanket, was the tiniest, most perfect baby Tom had ever seen. "Hello, Tom," Maria said quietly. Her voice was calm, but Tom could see in her eyes that she was still hurt and angry. Tom stood in the doorway not knowing what to say. He had practiced an apology in his head while he was waiting, but now that he was looking at Maria and their baby daughter, all the words seemed too small. "Maria," Tom said finally, his voice shaking. "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything." Maria looked at Tom standing in the doorway. Her face was calm, but her eyes were cold, colder than Tom had ever seen them before. "You can come in," Maria said quietly. "But don't come too close." Tom took a few steps into the room, his eyes immediately going to the tiny bundle in Maria's arms. He could see a little face peeking out from a soft pink blanket, his daughter sleeping peacefully. "She's beautiful," Tom whispered, feeling tears in his eyes. "Maria, she's perfect." "Her name is Hope," Maria said, not looking at Tom. Instead, she looked down at the baby with love and tenderness. "I named her Hope because she represents everything good that can come from the worst situations." Tom wanted to move closer, wanted to see his daughter's face better, but something in Maria's voice warned him to stay where he was. "Maria," Tom said, his voice breaking, "I know I made a terrible mistake. I was angry and stupid and I'm sorry. Can you ever forgive me? Can we work this out for Hope's sake?" Maria finally looked up at Tom. When she spoke, her voice was steady and strong. "You pushed me out into the rain when I was carrying your child," she said clearly. "I can't trust you again." Those words hit Tom like a punch to the stomach. "Maria, please. I know what I did was wrong, but people make mistakes. I can change. I can be better." "Tom," Maria said, adjusting the baby in her arms, "I went into labor in the rain because of what you did. Our daughter could have been born on the sidewalk. She could have been hurt or worse. All because you cared more about money than your own family." Tom felt desperate. He took a step forward, reaching toward his daughter. "Please, Maria. Let me hold her. Let me hold my daughter just once." "No," Maria said firmly, turning slightly away from Tom. "I don't trust you with her." Just then, Mrs. Lawson spoke up from her chair in the corner. "Tom, I think you should step outside for a moment. Let Maria rest." "But I just got here," Tom protested. "I just want to see my daughter." Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway. "Is everything all right in here?" she asked, looking concerned. "Tom was just leaving," Maria said calmly. "But Dr. Martinez, could you please take Hope to the nursery window so Tom can see her from there?" Dr. Martinez understood immediately. "Of course, Maria. Tom, you can see your daughter through the nursery window down the hall. The nurse will point her out to you." Tom felt confused and hurt. "You're going to make me look at my own daughter through a window? Like I'm some kind of stranger?" "You are a stranger to her," Maria said quietly. "And until I know you've changed, until I know Hope will be safe with you, that's how it has to be." Dr. Martinez gently took baby Hope from Maria's arms. "Come on, little one," she said softly to the baby. "Let's go to the nursery where Daddy can see you." Tom followed Dr. Martinez down the hall, his heart breaking with every step. At the nursery, Dr. Martinez placed Hope in a clear plastic bassinet next to the big window. "There she is," the nurse said kindly. "Baby girl Santos. 8 pounds 2 ounces. Born this morning at 8:47 a.m. Tom pressed his hands against the glass window, looking at his daughter. She was so tiny, so perfect. Her little chest moved up and down as she breathed. Her tiny fists were curled up near her face, and she had dark hair just like Maria's. "She's beautiful," Tom whispered, tears rolling down his cheeks. "She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." But even as he said those words, Tom realized something terrible. He was looking at his own daughter through a piece of glass, like she was in a zoo. He couldn't touch her, couldn't hold her, couldn't even be in the same room with her because her mother didn't trust him. This was what he had done to his family. This was the price of throwing Maria out in the rain. Tom stood there for a long time just looking at Hope through the window. Other families walked by, happy fathers carrying balloons, grandparents cooing over new babies, siblings excited to meet their new brother or sister. But Tom was alone, separated from his daughter by glass and by the terrible choice he had made the night before. When he finally walked back to Maria's room, Mrs. Lawson was waiting for him in the hallway. "Tom," she said gently, "I think it's time for you to go home. Maria needs to rest and she's made it clear that she needs space right now." "When can I come back?" Tom asked desperately. "When can I see Hope again?" "That's up to Maria," Mrs. Lawson replied. "But Tom, if you really want to be part of your daughter's life, you need to prove that you've changed. You need to show Maria that you can be trusted." Tom nodded even though his heart was breaking. He looked back toward Maria's room one more time, then walked slowly toward the elevator. As the elevator doors closed, Tom realized that he was going home to an empty apartment, an apartment that no longer felt like a home at all. The drive home felt like the longest trip of Tom's life. Every red light, every turn, brought him closer to an apartment that would now feel hollow and cold. As he parked his car and walked up the stairs to his front door, Tom could hear his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. He put his key in the lock and opened the door. The apartment was exactly as he had left it the night before, Maria's purse still sitting on the kitchen counter, her coffee mug still in the sink, the pillow on their bed still dented where her head had rested. But now everything looked different. Now it all looked like evidence of what he had lost. Tom sat down heavily on the couch and put his head in his hands. The silence in the apartment was so loud it hurt his ears. No sound of Maria moving around, no gentle humming as she folded baby clothes, no excited talk about what their life would be like when the baby came. Just silence. That night, Tom lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the sound of rain hitting the windows. He heard the door slamming as he pushed Maria out into the storm. He heard her voice saying, "You pushed me out into the rain when I was carrying your child. I can't trust you again." The next morning, Tom woke up hoping that maybe the whole thing had been a bad dream. Maybe Maria would be in the kitchen making coffee, her belly round with their unborn baby, smiling at him like she used to. But the apartment was still empty. Maria's side of the bed was still cold and untouched. Tom made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at Maria's purse. Her phone was probably still inside it. Her wallet, her work ID, her car keys, everything she needed for her normal life was sitting right there on his counter. But Maria didn't want her normal life back. She had made that very clear. Around noon, Tom heard a knock at the door. His heart jumped again. Maybe it was Maria coming back for her things. Tom opened the door to find Mrs. Lawson standing in the hallway, holding a small suitcase. "Hello, Tom," she said politely but coldly. "Mrs. Lawson," Tom said, feeling hopeful. "Is Maria with you? Is she coming home?" "No, Tom," Mrs. Lawson said firmly. "Maria asked me to come get her things. She's being discharged from the hospital this afternoon, and she won't be coming back here." Tom felt his heart sink. "Where is she going?" "That's not your business anymore," Mrs. Lawson replied. "Maria has made it clear that she doesn't want you to know where she'll be staying." Tom watched as Mrs. Lawson walked through the apartment, packing Maria's clothes, her books, her personal things. It felt like watching someone erase Maria from his life, piece by piece. "Mrs. Lawson," Tom said desperately, "please? Can you tell Maria that I'm sorry? Can you tell her I'll do anything to make this right?" Mrs. Lawson stopped packing and looked at Tom with sad but firm eyes. "Tom," she said, "Maria doesn't want your apologies. She doesn't want your promises. She wants you to leave her and Hope alone so they can build a safe, peaceful life. But Hope is my daughter too, Tom said. I have rights. Yes, you do have rights, Mrs. Lawson agreed. But Maria has rights too. And right now, she's using those rights to protect herself and her baby from someone she can't trust. As Mrs. Lawson finished packing and walked toward the door, Tom felt panic rising in his chest. When will I see Hope again? He called out. Mrs. Lawson paused at the door. That's up to Maria, she said quietly. And Tom, if you really love your daughter, you'll give Maria the space she needs right now. Then Mrs. Lawson was gone, taking the last pieces of Maria with her. Tom was truly alone. Days turned into weeks, and Tom's life became a gray, empty routine. He would wake up in the morning and for just a few seconds he would forget what had happened. Then reality would crash over him like a cold wave. Maria was gone, Hope was gone, and it was all his fault. Tom tried calling Maria's work friends to ask about her, but they all said the same thing. Maria doesn't want to talk to you, Tom. Please leave her alone. He drove by the hospital several times, hoping to catch a glimpse of Maria and Hope, but he never saw them. He even went to Maria's favorite coffee shop and the grocery store where she always shopped, but it was like she had disappeared completely. The neighbors on his street treated Tom differently now. They had all heard about what happened that stormy night, and they looked at him with cold, disapproving eyes. Mr. and Mrs. Chin no longer said hello when they saw him. Mr. Peterson avoided him completely. Even the mail carrier seemed to judge him when he delivered the daily pile of bills. Tom tried to go back to his old life, meeting his friends at the bar, playing poker, pretending everything was normal. But it wasn't the same. Every time someone told a joke, Tom found himself thinking about Hope's tiny face. Every time someone complained about their wife, Tom wanted to tell them to go home and apologize before it was too late. What's wrong with you lately? Jake asked one night after Tom had folded his cards and sat quietly for an hour. You're acting weird, man. It's like you're not even here. Nothing's wrong, Tom lied, just like he had been lying for weeks. But everything was wrong. Tom had lost the two most important people in his life, and he was slowly realizing that he might never get them back. One evening, about 3 weeks after Hope was born, Tom was sitting alone in his apartment when there was a knock at the door. His heart jumped with the same hope it always did. Maybe it was Maria. But when he opened the door, he found a young man in a suit holding an envelope. Tom Santos? The man asked. Yes, Tom replied. You've been served, the man said, handing Tom the envelope. Have a good day. Tom's hands shook as he opened the envelope. Inside were legal papers, divorce papers. Maria was officially ending their marriage. Tom read through the papers twice, trying to understand all the legal words. But the message was clear. Maria wanted nothing from him. She wasn't asking for money or the apartment or any of their shared things. She just wanted to be free from him. The papers also mentioned something about supervised visitation for Hope, which meant Tom might be allowed to see his daughter sometimes, but only with other people watching to make sure Hope was safe. Tom sat on his couch with the divorce papers in his hands, and for the first time since that terrible night, he cried. He cried for Maria, who had loved him and trusted him and worked so hard to make their life better. He cried for Hope, who would grow up not knowing her father. And he cried for himself because he finally understood what he had lost. A few days later, Tom got a phone call from a lawyer. Mr. Santos, the woman said in a professional voice, I'm calling about your divorce case and the custody arrangements for your daughter. Yes, Tom said, his voice barely a whisper. Your wife has agreed to allow you supervised visits with your daughter once a month, for 2 hours at a time at the family court building. The first visit can be scheduled for next month if you're interested. Tom felt a tiny spark of hope. Yes, he said quickly. Yes, I want to see my daughter. Very well, the lawyer said. I'll send you the paperwork. Mr. Santos, I need to make something very clear. These visits are a privilege, not a right. If you miss a visit, show up late, or do anything that makes the court think you're not taking this seriously, these visits can be taken away permanently. I understand, Tom said. I'll be there. I promise I'll be there. After he hung up the phone, Tom looked around his empty apartment. He had a whole month to wait before he could see Hope again. A whole month to think about what he would say to his daughter, how he would explain why he hadn't been there for her birth, why he wasn't living with her and taking care of her like fathers are supposed to do. Tom walked over to the window and looked out at the street. It was starting to rain again, just a light drizzle, but enough to make him remember that terrible night when everything changed. He thought about Maria somewhere out there, probably holding Hope, probably singing to her or feeding her or changing her diaper. All the things Tom should have been doing but couldn't, because he had made the worst decision of his life. The rain got a little heavier and Tom realized something that made his chest feel tight and heavy. He was going to spend the rest of his life watching his family from a distance, seeing Hope grow up in visits measured in hours instead of days, missing her first words, her first steps, her first day of school. All because of one night when he chose anger over love. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comment below. See you in my next video.